Audio test 1 2. Audio test 1 2. Audio test. Testing the audio. Audio check. Meeting will be starting momentarily. Audio check.
All right, let's go ahead and go to work. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Genoa Township Board of Trustees. The time is 6:30 p.m. The date is June 3rd, 2021. A full and accurate account of this meeting's audio recording can be found at www.genoatwp.com. Present, I'm going to do roll call.
Yes.
Yeah.
Roll call, Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes. And we're present along with us tonight is Paul Wise, Bob Matthews, Joe Ponzi, Joe Schaefer. And at this time, I'll ask Molly McHale to lead us in the pledge. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Molly. All right, fiscal officer's report. Pat?
I just would like to ask for approval of the minutes, the May 6th regular trustee meeting minutes.
All right, I'll move to approve the following May 6, 2021 regular trustee minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded. Discussion, roll call.
Roll call, Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you.
That's it? Good Lord. All right, sounds good.
Summertime.
We'll make the assumption we still have money and
Yes.
the books are still in balance. All right, this time we'll go to trustee comments. Ms. Goodman?
I have one comment this evening. On May 3rd, a special trustee zoning meeting was held to hear the application of Genoa Baptist Church to build a Christian academy with access onto Worthington Road directly across from the Mirasol subdivision. Numerous Mirasol residents were present and expressed concern about the potential for traffic entering or exiting the new drive using Via Florenza as a shortcut between Worthington and Lewis Center roads. Although a traffic study was completed, it was noted that by some Mirasol residents that this study was conducted during the COVID-19 pandemic and could have been skewed as many people were working from home as businesses and schools closed. I believe this may be a valid point, and as such, I'm proposing the following. And with permission, I'm going to put it in the form of a motion, so I only have to say it once because it's long. Okay? I move that a Delaware County request for engineering assistance form be completed by Paul Wise, our township administrator, requesting the Genoa Baptist Church traffic study be redone as follows. 1, the traffic study be completed in 2 parts. A, the first study is to be done sometime after July 1 to 2021 and prior to November 1st, 2021. And we'll use the same parameters as the initial study. This timeframe will be after the majority of pandemic guidelines are lifted and prior to the holiday season when traffic may be reduced due to the holidays. B, the second study is to be conducted after the school is built and classes have begun. This portion will include the original parameters and will concentrate on the area of Via Florenza and the new driveway. More specifically, this is to include the number of vehicles crossing either eastbound or westbound from Via Florenza to the new driveway during the morning drop-off and afternoon pickup hours. 2, using the data from these 2 traffic studies, a comparison can then be made and a determination of any other traffic controls that may be needed can be made by the Delaware County Engineer's Office. Mr. Chairman, may I ask for a second to my motion?
All right. Yeah, I'll go ahead and second the motion so we can have discussion.
Okay.
Discussion. It's a little bit out of order that, normally we would have done something like that under new business, but
Sorry.
We'll let it slide.
Okay.
I mean, I don't want you to have to read the.
My bad.
I don't want you to have to read the whole motion again, so.
Nor do I want to read it again. It's a lot.
Go ahead. So we'll, any other comments?
Not from me. I think I was pretty clear in what I stated.
Yeah.
Stated when? Just the motion?
In this motion, that there was concern by the residents
Okay.
about the driveway from the church being directly across from Via Florenza. And, the concern that they expressed that perhaps with the COVID pandemic, that it wasn't the best time to do a traffic study and get an accurate record. So the point of this, from my perspective, is to get, after we've lifted some of these COVID restrictions, to get the truer traffic pattern and then redo it once the classes have begun and have the Delaware County Engineer's Office determine if there should be more controls than what was placed at this time.
I have questions and then some comments. This won't alter the approval of anything.
Nope.
So this resident just wants a before and after. We have no jurisdiction over what happens. It all goes through the county engineers.
Yeah. And we finally come to that resolution.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought that's what one of the big issues was before, that was the issue that was up in debate, but that being said, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think that this is in response to the residents' concerns. As you know, we had many residents here that evening that expressed concerns with the traffic pattern. Many of the alternatives perhaps are not the best without shoving traffic from one place to the next, moving it from one neighborhood to the next. And so this would assess whether or not there really is an issue based on numbers and statistics from current to whatever is happening after the building's built, the classes have begun, and cars start traversing that roadway.
What were the dates again, Connie?
The first traffic study would be done sometime after July 1st of 2021 and prior to November 1st of 2021. And that's so that Thanksgiving, Christmas, all those vacation periods are out. And then the second study would be conducted after the school is built and classes have begun. And there's no permanent, absolute date on that yet.
Go ahead.
Well, so I'm just trying to work through this. If we pass a motion tonight, we can't control the county engineers, so they may or may not conduct the study, correct?
It's a request from us to the county.
Okay.
And we're suggesting parameters.
And there again, this motion would include another traffic study whenever the school opens. That's not guaranteed either.
What's not?
Two studies.
Well, I think the request would be for both of them.
Yeah, right.
So our request would be a two-part request.
Yep.
We can't control whether the county will do it or not.
Right.
But I think that our residents from Mirasol have a legitimate concern. And this would be a way to look at that concern with some real numbers behind it and see if there is truly an issue. Because we couldn't, during that meeting, any of us say there would be an issue.
Right.
This will say, here's where we're at, here's what we have in the future, and the county can determine whether or not there is an issue.
Okay.
Questions?
No, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Joe, are you on a mic back there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Do you have any questions or, I mean, I don't have necessarily a concern about this. Maybe my bigger concern is but I guess a request, and I'm thinking out loud here, since it's the first time, we've all heard this. Anyone could request a traffic study at any time?
Yeah, it's under the Delaware County, they put out a form. It's a standard form, and it's a check the box what service you want, like there could be a speed, a request to check speed limits on the street, request to do whatever service, check the box, or if this isn't one of the boxes, it would be under other. So the majority of the board would need to sign this request, and I would ship it up to the county for them to take care of and consider. It's called an REA form. We've signed those in the past.
I have recently, last year, residents on Sunbury Road reached out because they want to reduce their speed limit. So I had been in touch with the engineer's office, and they decided because of COVID to wait. But it was performed this spring, and all I had to do was request it.
Well, that's actually on one of their streets, so
Right,
they do it on their own at that point without a written form.
got it.
But yeah, that's what it would take. I would take the language there, the parameters, and plunk it into that, and have the board sign it, and then we'll mail it up to them.
Worthington Road in this area is a county road, correct?
But Marisol's ours.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I would just want to, even though it can be requested at any time, I think we have to be cautious that this, this doesn't become you have a study at one time that's being requested as part of the development plan, part of the zoning request. It's approved, it would have to be approved, and then 6 months later, we decide, we need another one. There may be needs for that. There may be circumstances where all of a sudden it's just anecdotally, you see more cars on the road and maybe something has to be done. But I think we have to be cautious that this doesn't become, we're going to continue to do traffic studies until we identify that there's a problem. I think that I would be a little cautious on that. I'm not opposed to this, but I think going forward we'd have to.
And I think that this time, one of the concerns, as I stated in my motion, is that COVID changed a lot. And so traffic patterns were different. There were days you'd drive down the road and there were no cars. And so, I think that concern that was expressed by residents this time may be very different from what we might experience in the future.
The other issue, and I think this was the other part of my concern, is July to November. I mean, I think that's fine. But again, a traffic study was done. Based on that traffic study, the project was approved. And could an argument be made as well, they're probably not going to start before July 21, so why don't we open up the whole can of worms, do the study, and kind of reevaluate? I don't even know if that's possible or not, Joe.
In regards to the church's approval?
Pardon?
In regards to the church's approval?
Yeah, I mean, the church has received their approval, and they're, from what I understand, it's good for 3 years.
Correct. And even if we did this study, even if it shows something eventually needs to be done, I don't think, I'm pretty certain the township can't go back to the church and require them to do it. I'd be relatively surprised if the engineer's office could go back to the church and require them to do that. I think at that point, if an improvement was needed, it'd be something the county would have to put on their punch list.
Yeah.
I don't know that for certain. I don't want to speak for the engineer's office, but that's just my gut reaction to that.
Well, we couldn't anyhow, because again.
Well,
as
it's not
has
our
been
road.
tonight and before, it's not our authority, so, okay. All right, anything else? Any other questions? Roll call.
Roll call, Ms. Goodman,
Yes,
Ms. Vaughn,
Yes,
Mr. Gebhardt,
Yes. Motion carries.
thank you.
Okay.
I've said enough this evening, thank you.
No, that was a lot. All right, Renee?
I just want to give an update on the Narcan training that was held at the police station. We had 7 people attend. I thought it went very well. We had Battalion Chief Johnson and Officer Duncan. I thought their presentations really added to what Denman said. Thank you. Their presentations really countered, or not countered, but I don't know what I want to say here, paired with what Corinne had to say at the county level. And it's something that I think, I had a few people there who couldn't make it because it was just a bad night. And also, several people there were part of groups, and in their groups, members were residents of a different township. So they would have invited them, but they weren't sure if outside members could come and attend. So I think if we advertise it, that it's open to anybody and not just Genoa Township residents, I'd like to offer it again in the fall, and Corinne said she'd be happy to come back anytime. Just let us know. So of the people who attended, they were very thankful and appreciative that we were offering that service. So went well. And the last thing is, I've had a couple people ask about, we talked about opening up the meetings last meeting to the public. And I thought we made it clear that we were opening up all the buildings, but I don't know that that was.
Our entrance is open now. So,
Okay.
yes.
To anyone, and how about police,
Any-
fire station, are they open?
Well, I'm sure your lobby's open now, isn't it? Probably has been.
Our lobby's always been open
Yeah.
during the lockdown, but we have, we've allowed no visitors except for necessary contractors to be in the building. I've allowed no sales meetings, no meeting with salespersons, with myself or anybody else. We've held those off-site. So we're just looking for a little clarification as, are we 100% open for business as far
Yeah,
as
we're open for business.
station tours, kids coming in, looking at the trucks? We've avoided all of that during this. We've literally told families, you can stand here, look at the trucks, but you're not coming in, et cetera.
Is the board okay with that?
I mean, personally, I don't have a problem with it, but I think it should be conveyed to staff that if they continue to wish to wear a mask, that they're not going to be looked upon as, having 3 heads, that's a personal preference as far as I'm concerned. I mean, they could wear a mask during flu season or any time else as far as I'm concerned. So that would be the only thing, is there still may be some individual staff members that may feel uncomfortable just having the general public around. So that would be my only caveat.
And the police lobby's been open this whole time for safety reasons. But yeah, the public, we've had some come in already for business, and if they needed to get further than dawn, then we pass them through the locked side. So.
How about the reservations? Where are we at with?
We had probably our most productive day of this building, at least installing security, there were actually 3 employees on site all day. We had, I think on the corner by Joe's office, there's been 1 camera installed. There's gonna be 3 external and 1 internal camera. So they're still doing the wiring there, and I think they're coming back tomorrow, I hope. But as soon as we get the fob system up and running, we can now we'll open this section up for rentals. Because it's gonna be a coded access to the building, so we won't have to pass off keys or anything like that anymore. It'll be time-stamped allowances for the residents.
So when can people start making reservations? I mean, are we going to?
We'll put out an announcement once the security system's in place. I hate to keep extending that line out and line out and line out.
So we won't even accept reservations until security's in place?
For this facility,
Yeah.
no. But the parks are all open for rentals.
Oh, I had a question. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Shelters, are they
Yeah, they're
being
open.
rented?
Yes, a lot of them.
Yeah, good. Okay, so I have, thank you.
Yeah, as long as we just communicate with everyone what's going on.
Oh, I know what else. I was going to just comment on when Carl was saying, if people want to wear a mask. I also feel like it's up to each individual building leader. If you're having health issues, flare up or whatever, then I trust you to monitor your own building as we open up.
All right, the only thing I have is, and again, it's regarding our May 3rd meeting. After that meeting, Renee, you sent out a communication
Yep.
that you're more than welcome to send it out. You're more than welcome to your vote and to justify your vote. What was interesting, I guess, and maybe a little bothersome, is why do we think, or did it insinuate that when elected officials follow the law, that should be considered a negative? And I guess, I mean, haven't we had enough divisiveness in this township already? Do we have to rip the Band-Aid off again and go down that path? I mean, I think it was, as you stated tonight, county engineer has the authority over traffic, but a lot of people were under the assumption we could do something about it that you met with. And I guess I'm just, it's unfortunate. You're entitled to your position. You're entitled to say what you want to say. You're entitled to publish what you want to say. But we've been through that. We went through that for 4 years. And I guess I had hoped that we had risen above that to some extent. And I guess, it goes back to, a quote it says, "I once read that someone serving or interested in serving in public office whose focus is not on the rule of law, but instead on the belief the end justifies the means, should be a concern to all people and is a danger at any level of government." And I'm not saying that just applies to you, but I think in this case, we're getting real close. So I just wanted to put that out there. And if you have any rebuttal, you're welcome to.
I just think a lot of times you pick and choose what you vote on, and you use the threat of a lawsuit to justify a vote, whether it's relevant or not, or pertinent or not, and whether it will happen or not. I'm here to represent the people.
You're here to uphold your oath, and
Right.
I don't see anything in your oath that says, I'm going to listen to the squeaky squeal at the expense of ignoring the law.
I don't feel that I ignored the law. The fire marshal was requiring an access road. It wasn't a road, so I was okay with allowing an access road, but to approve access road to be used for the public, I didn't feel that we needed to approve that.
Our zoning resolution allows it. In fact, it brings that piece of property in more compliance than it was prior to that road going in. So we can sit here
I know.
and we can continue to
It all
talk.
boiled down for
but-
me that it was a safety issue.
Yeah,
and
but
that
then you
is
turned it
part-
into a political issue.
No, I don't
Yes, you
think I
did.
did.
When you made the statement in the article that these are the same two trustees that are up for reelection, you crossed the line and you made it political. Had we just been able to debate the facts, you're entitled to your position and your vote, and that's what you're here for. And we are as well. When you made that statement, you went back to the way things used to be. And,
Sorry you feel that way.
yeah, I'm sorry it happened as well. All right, public comment. Hearing none, since we have no public here, we'll go into administration.
Thank you. This evening, we have a contribution by a resident. Mr. Robert Litt wrote this letter to the township, and I'd like to read it. It says, enclosed is a $100 contribution to thank Genoa Township for the continuing efforts to improve and maintain the 3C bike trail. I enjoy riding this trail with the shade canopy and most pleasant people who use it. McNamara Park is a great trailhead and rest stop. Overall, I think your efforts to maintain this trail are outstanding, and everyone who keeps it maintained deserves to be commended. Please share my appreciation with the township trustees and all staff who work to support this trail. Signed, Robert Litt, $100 donation. I ask the board accept that.
Absolutely. I will move to graciously accept the donation from Robert Litt in the amount of $100 for the Perks Fund. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded, discussion. Roll call.
Roll call, Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Gebhardt?
Yes, motion carries, and we do thank Bob. I don't know how many years he's been doing it, but it's
He
been a
keeps sending,
lot.
every year he sends another donation.
And he lives in Westerville.
Genoa Township.
Yep. And so we appreciate that.
Anyway, next up on my agenda, the township had received notice this past week that the EPA grant that we, Jim Barna, applied for in January, we have received a notice that the township will be rewarded that grant. If you recall, we discussed this back during the budget time, where the whole project would be, it would be for recycling totes that are wheeled totes with lids, 65-gallon containers, and the grant would call for 1,500 units to be purchased, and the total expenditure would be $75,000. Included in that would be some literature for advertising, litter prevention, et cetera. So the EPA portion of this grant would be $60,000, and Genoa Township would have a match of $15,000. And at the time, since we had 1,500 units, I had suggested to the board that there would be a resident reimbursement of $10 per unit, and then they would own the can. And so the can would be imprinted with recycling on it and say, have Genoa Township's logo and whatever else we might want it to say. So you decided last fall that you suggested we apply for the grant, see if we got it, and then discuss if moving ahead with funding this expenditure. So that's my story. Congratulations to Jim Barna.
Yeah. What's the timeline now on this, Paul?
We actually have not even received the documents from the EPA yet, so I'm sure that will be spelled out on the usage and time frame of that grant. The good thing is, I know last year we had some concerns about the storage of these things, and I heard through our Keep Delaware County Beautiful people that the good thing about these large 65 gallons are they can be nested. So we won't have one unit spread out all over the place. We'd have nesting of these things, so, which is good.
It's better.
It's better.
Right, Bob?
It's better. It's better.
All right.
I'm sorry, do we have to take them all at once?
No, we can order a certain number.
Okay.
And
Up to
as those would be so-called sold to the public, just if we run out, order another group. So I think the way this grant works, we'll fund the whole thing up front and then get reimbursed for this and have that whole, under that time frame. But there'll be more news coming once we receive documentation from the EPA. So,
You might talk to them, I mean, if they've done this before, you know, again, the logistics of this can be a real interesting. So we may want to talk to see if they have any suggestions on how to roll this out, so we don't have people lining up, or I don't know what the plan is, if we're gonna
We've got-
deliver them, if we're gonna.
I mean, we have trailers, and if they could be nested, we can,
Or even
here's the list of
At
homes
different
that bought 'em.
locations, maybe
Yeah,
at
put 'em
Central
out.
and.
Here's all the ones at Vinmore, do that today, or whatever.
Okay.
But, you know, I would love to buy one myself, so.
Yeah,
Me too.
And it's, you could take it with you, whatever, if you move around the township, move out, it's yours.
so
So,
do away with the red bins.
well, if you want to.
Yeah,
But since we had so much, since the Rumpke's behind, there's been a lot of discussion about dirt, littering with all the red bins losing their stuff, but this fits right into a solution. So, I'm hoping the board, once we get all the documents, the board would accept moving ahead with this.
since we're on the subject, things seem to have gone better last week.
Yeah, I
With
think
trash pickup.
the public is a lot quieter this week with some of their communications. And I think both of mine were both picked up on Saturday. And with the holiday, it'll be Saturday again. They said, put it out Friday. If they're done with all the route stuff, they had over 70 trucks here on Saturday. So it was big. They were moving. So I don't know if you're getting calls at home anymore, but it's kind of quieting down a little bit. And they wanted to let us know there's 9 drivers in their training program going through it right now. So that should help matters.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Anything else?
Nope.
Well, okay. Joe, zoning, anything? I think we have a little issue here to deal with, huh?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Board. I do have one issue for you this evening. This is a sort of an atypical matter. So I've provided you a memorandum that goes really in depth on this situation, and I'm gonna spare us all from reading through it. So I'm just gonna try to give you just a very high level. So late last year, the zoning office received a complaint about a business operating in a residential zoning district at 3725 Rome Corners Road. We did some investigation right after we got the complaint. We did get some pictures, and then also we had a couple of neighbors who, over the past several months, actually have been providing us pictures, videos of the business operation. And it's essentially a concrete contracting business. Workers coming onto the site very early in the morning, making a lot of noise, loading trucks, unloading trucks, materials. It's all spelled out there in the memorandum and the exhibits. So a pretty clear violation of occupying or running a business in a residential zoning district. We do allow businesses in residential zoning districts, but we allow home occupations, which have no to relatively very little impact on their surroundings, where you almost don't even know they're going on if you were to drive by. This wasn't the case. This was a full-fledged industrial type of operation. So we sent them a notice of violation in early January. We received confirmation that they had received it by about mid-January. We even talked to the property owner. Actually doesn't live there, which is one of the violations. He's actually renting the property out, and it's the renter who's running the business, which is definitely not allowed, because that is 100% not a home occupation at that point, because it's not the property owner running the business. So we gave them a deadline till about mid-February to basically cease the operation, get off the site, quit doing what they're doing. By about mid-February, things had sort of slowed down, and we thought maybe it was petering out. You know, sometimes it takes time to find a new location, move stuff. We also thought there's also just the possibility it's mid-February, and that was right about when the big cold snap and blizzard hit, and maybe they're just slowing down because it's a concrete business and it's not very easy to do work in sub-zero temperatures with concrete. So we waited a bit, and then sure enough, in about April, we heard things were rarely ramping up out there again. And at that point, we said, okay, they've gotten the notice of violation. We've talked to the property owner. They had changed like their listing on their Facebook page, which was one of the things we had cited in the NOV, but they clearly did not seem to have any intentions of coming into compliance. So at that point, We forwarded it to the prosecutor's office with a request to proceed with formal zoning violation enforcement through the court system. Mr. Fowler did file that case last week, at the end of May, but he did suggest to me that I just come before the board and make sure I get the board's sort of authorization or acknowledgement and sort of disapproval that we proceed with the case. I think I'm allowed to request a filing of that case of that nature as the zoning inspector as part of the enforcement proceedings per our zoning resolution. I'm not sure Mr. Fowler disagrees with that, but he did note that in one of these prior enforcement cases somewhere else that they had an attorney bring up, well, it's a gray area and really the prosecutor's office works for the trustees, not the zoning inspector, so only such an action could be brought by the Board of Trustees. So as a belt and suspenders type of thing, I'm here before you this evening just to ask the board if it's okay with me to proceed with having Mr. Fowler move forward with this case. So I didn't get a lot of clarification whether it needed to just be a general consensus or a formal motion. Obviously, a motion is pretty much an ironclad thing. But I think we just need to document on the record somehow that the board is aware that the zoning office has taken this step and is in line with the zoning office actions and is okay with us proceeding in this manner.
Joe, I'll go ahead and, I guess we'll just go ahead and put in the form of a motion. I'll authorize, a move to authorize the Zoning and Development Office to proceed with the zoning enforcement at 3725 Rome Corners Road. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Roll call, Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn? Yes. Mr. Gebhardt?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you. That's all I have for you this evening.
Okay, new business, zoning violation, we got that? Looks like Bob?
The first item is a barn update. We had another person that was gonna put the roof on come to give us an estimate, and he felt that the barn needed so much work that putting $26,000 in the roof was a waste of money. So he gave you all should have a copy of these. He said they could build a replica of the barn there for a certain amount, and it's on the paper, or renovate the other one. The foundation is shot, he said. There's more things wrong with it that he pointed out to us that we want to get some direction from the board of how the board wants to proceed. I don't know from what he talked to us about, I really have a hard time putting $26,000 in a roof and then doing something different after the fact or just wasting that money. Molly is here too. She could add what he said, or Connie was at that barn at that day too. She could tell you more about it, but I just can't see putting that money in it.
Molly?
Evening.
Hi.
So, yeah, like Bob said, we had them quote, just for comparison purposes, we had them do one estimate that's a renovation, because that's what we had set out to do the whole time. But then as we kept uncovering more and more, it was becoming clear that maybe renovation wasn't necessarily the best idea. But just to keep kind of to that apples to apples comparison, we still had him do just some renovation numbers, but then we also had him do a full replica. So it is not the goal, particularly of the Parks Committee. We talked about this last night at our meeting. It is not our goal to take this one down and just put up any old shelter. We would like to see the township invest the money in a replica of the barn, the structure, the historical structure that represents our rural heritage, as, to replicate that. So it would be the Gramble roof, all of that. The lean-to, we had him add that as just an extra line item. It doesn't look like he really broke that out, but adding that lean-to on the side is kind of, you know, not necessarily necessary as part of the replica, but just to do just the main barn structure. So that's the quote that he did, that's the 20 by 30. So the first line says main barn renovation, and the other page says 20 by 30 timber frame barn.
Okay.
So that's the duplicate, or the replica. The 20 by 30 number was just a number that we pulled out the day that we were talking to him out there at the site. We were thinking that maybe it would be an option to scale it down a little bit, but we would kind of like to leave that as the size as kind of an open-ended until we actually go to do the actual drawings. Bob and I have talked about maybe staking out the 20 by 30 just to get a visual of what does a 20 by 30 look like. The actual structure, the existing barn is, did I say 24 by 40, Bob?
Yeah.
So the existing barn is 24 by 40, but then it has a 14-foot lean-to on the side. Okay, so if you think about the west side has that additional, so that's 14 feet wide by 40. And then the existing barn, the original structure, is 24 by 40. So we were talking about scaling it down, but we're not saying that the 20 by 30 is the official size. We'd kind of like to put some stakes in the ground and see what that really looks like. You know, Bob and I have talked about maybe if we took the lean-to off and it was the 24 by 40, maybe that's not that bad. Maybe we should stick to something more like that without the additional 14 feet on it.
Okay.
But all in all, what we really need right now, because the roof is peeling off, is just a decision of, do we move forward with some type of renovation? Or do we move forward with trying to figure out how to get down the existing barn, and whether that's taking it down ourselves, possibly trying to find somebody who would buy it and take it down for the lumber, and then start over and start with a replica that's new.
Molly, when we talked also, when we threw out this 20 by 30 figure, and Bob, as I recall, we thought about that was similar to the Freeman Park shelter for a perspective on size. And that's why we threw out that number. Again, it could be a little bit larger. That's not the largest shelter in the world, but, you know, it's functional. The other thing is, as we went through the barn with this gentleman last week, he pointed out a number of issues that folks had not pointed out previously. One of them that I recall specifically was when he talked about the posts. He said in a barn that age, usually where the post comes up, that the rafter goes across it, these were nailed into it. Now, whether some of these changes were original in the barn or they happened after it was moved from the other side of the road, we'll probably never know. But those are the kinds of structural things that he looked at it, and I think his reference, if I recall, was a light structure as opposed to a
Frame
full,
structure.
I'm sorry?
Light frame
Light frame.
structure.
So that, and, you know, he mentioned a few other things that contributed to that light frame, where some of the posts had actually had secondary boards nailed to them for stability and structure. So these are the things that we didn't, you know, hear about earlier, in my recollection.
Yep, we didn't.
He also said that the timbers, the main support timbers are like 6.5 by 6.5 or something like that. And normally they would be more like 10 by 10s in an original structure. And that's where he was coming up with the word light frame, that I had to say, what exactly do you mean by light frame? And that's where he said a 6 by 6 is a little lighter timber than what a normal heavier frame might have been a 10 by 10.
No, first of all, let's go back to the roof. I mean, is there any way of doing, you know, kind of a patch on that roof so we don't have metal flapping, you know, in the wind and blowing off more.
I think we could rent a lift truck and get up there and fasten it to something so they're in the hole in it and it's not flopping around. I just have a hard time spending that kind of money on something that it's not worth it.
Yeah, I don't want to spend $26,000 on a new roof. I mean, but if we can, you know, get a piece of, you know, sheet metal or something, or, you know, and I don't know, Bob. I mean, I haven't been up there, you know, Paul.
Meeting we discussed turning in the claim, and the insurance company assigned the claims adjuster, and last Friday, he had time to meet me on site at the barn. Anyway, there's not much money in this claim, in their opinion. They're looking at $1,500. Of that, $1,000 is our deductible, so a $500 check is all we're looking at for this type. Because of it's a small area, but it pulled all the skeleton away when it flipped over, so.
Well, the other thing, if the replica is built, I mean, it's a barn. It's not I mean, it's not public accessible, is it? So.
Our goal would be to make it more of a shelter house that looks like a barn. And that was kind of our renovation idea, was to kind of open up parts of the barn to make it more of a shelter. It would still look like a barn, but it would be a shelter. So the concrete pad and the pad of the barn would have some picnic tables, things like that in it. And we would work, I mean, this guy builds a custom barn. So we can totally customize it the way we want it to look, and make it a shelter that looks like a barn.
Like the Everett barn?
Well,
Everill's more of an event center that's air conditioned and heated and all that. We're talking purely open air shelter.
but even with that, if there's going to be public access, I would think that there would have to be other modifications made to it or other aspects. And again, I don't know. Maybe that's what has to be looked at.
I don't know. What kind of modifications are you thinking?
Well, I mean, electric, fire suppression, restrooms. I mean, I don't know. I'm just kind of speculating right now. I mean, I was at a graduation party in an old barn last Sunday, and it was beautiful. It was still pretty rough. And I'm sitting there thinking, wow, I mean, to get our barn to that, you're talking more than $150,000. So, and I mean, it had electricity and it had running water, it had restrooms off to the side and the whole thing. But unfortunately, the owner wasn't there. I had to talk to him to find out what it did cost him, because it was just an old barn that obviously they had renovated. So.
I think many of us, and myself included, as we talked with the Parks group last night, we were so hopeful that we could save this old barn. We're kind of changing our mind, it's not unanimous, but the consensus was that it's just a lot of money to invest in a barn that really is kind of falling apart. What we also had talked about is if we did a replica, something similar, it would be open on 2 or 3 sides. Probably the side on the south side that faces a house would be enclosed to give some buffering for that neighbor. We'd also talked about there are restrooms there already, and they're in close proximity, so we wouldn't need that. Electric, they're actually, I don't know if it's still functional, but there's electric stuff in there. No, okay. And the other thing that we talked about was having a similar roof, and then if we could possibly save the logo that's on the north end, or the majority of it, and that logo is actually on a door of some sort. So perhaps they could just take that down and we could put it on the south end, or, do something with it to preserve the bicentennial logo. So that was somewhat of the discussion, and if I missed anything, please.
There's also the hay trolley. The original hay trolley is up in the hay mow. So we talked about taking the hay trolley out and mounting it in the new structure so that it could become part of, and still make the shelter a barn, or look like a barn, feel like a barn. The door that the logo is painted on is actually the hay door that actually is vertical, but it flips all the way down. and rests on the side of the barn, and then the hay trolley comes out of it, and then they bring the hay up through that door. So it really wouldn't be too hard, I don't think, to just take that door off and then cut out the rest of the logo that's on barn wood and try to reuse some of that to preserve, like Connie said, to preserve that logo. I think it would also be cool to have that door and like with a sign or something that says, this is the old hay door. You know, this is what was opened and then the hay was moved in through the original barn.
Could we get those people on HGTV from Mississippi, that couple?
Oh, I like them.
Renovated.
Jenny and Dave.
Yeah.
Oh, I think, maybe that's the Arkansas couple.
For 150, they'd probably really make it nice.
So if, obviously this wasn't in your budget,
But
the parks budget.
Yeah, I mean, if originally the renovation was hopeful for like 4 to 5 years out, this kind of having the roof peel off kind of pushes our hand. We've kind of talked about some of the stuff that we have budgeted out. We could probably do some rearrangement of that money to free up money to, you know, do something with the barn.
One of the concerns that has been expressed is the way that the roof now sits. Another good wind would peel it back further, much like a sardine can. And I know I've felt this, and I know others have expressed, what if that actually blows off? We don't want it to injure anyone, so we've got to make some decision.
But I mean, putting a Band-Aid on it and, you know, seeing, I mean, you're talking a couple years before the money would be there anyhow. And is there anything we can do just to keep the thing standing? I mean, it stood there for how many years already, but it's getting worse.
Like I said, I can get a lift and some way we can secure to the roof to something. There's not very much good wood up there, I know that. It's all rotted. But we could probably get it secured some way.
One thing that one of the other people, the many people that we've talked to about this barn, somebody else said there are places that you can look at the roof, and if you stand on the west side and look up at it, the peeled end is over to the south side of the barn. But if you look at the first pitch of the Gramble roof, there's a little buckle in it, and like the guy that was pointing that out said, you know, that's just waiting for that to get peeled back too.
Yeah.
There are other places, it's not, that was the guy that said it's not a repair job, because it's got other weak points in it that it's just gonna continue to peel.
Yeah, it might be.
Maybe peeling right now.
Unfortunately, not blowing too hard. All right, well. Thoughts?
Well, I mean, I'm leaning towards building a new one. It's just how do you pay for it and what do we do in the meantime? But just because I'm not for putting money into something that isn't salvageable, and it sounds like it's not. It's gonna cost us more to repair it and make it usable than it is to build a new one.
I
comment.
have a thought also. We're only 3 months into funding.
Right?
And we actually got the money in March, and now it's June. I guess it's 4 months. So we don't have a lot of money right now in that fund. And we're probably not gonna have a lot of carryover, which we do need at least 3 months salary carryover to lead us into next year. So I'm in favor of your Band-Aid idea. Somehow try to patch it up minimally. I can get the $500 to help us at least to pay for the lift, and go from there in some future date when there is. Maybe this would be a good levy, you know, hey, part of this new levy would be to rehab the barn or do whatever, replace as a,
Well, fortunately,
Alternate.
it's not on, I mean, it's on the west side of the barn, right? Correct. North end, west side, so it's not real visible
South
if you get that flattened out. So, I mean, I don't think it has to be aesthetically pleasing, it's just gotta be functionally effective, that it's not peeled back and it may help keep some.
Someone.
You guys are pretty creative, just really, I mean, just be careful, because that's obviously not a very substantial roof up
No.
there, so.
That's why you'd have to get a lift.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't want anybody up on top of it.
No, we don't want you to be climbing that roof. Okay. All right. And then we'll kind of see where we go from here.
Okay.
As far as the building. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Molly. And it's still secured and everything. I mean, we haven't had any issues over there with
No.
people getting into it. I
No.
hadn't heard of any. Okay.
Just groundhogs.
Just, yeah,
Yeah.
which, again, isn't helping the situation. All right.
All right, moving on.
yeah.
Next item is the road improvement. As you're probably aware, we hadn't done away when we was doing the base work. The road kind of decided it was tired of being the road and fell apart. And you got pictures of what we were dealing with on the screen. I gave you a picture, but you can look on the screen. You see where backing the trucks in to dig it out? All that is pushed up along the blacktop is mud, clay that turned to mud because it was saturated so bad. We actually replaced the base and 636 feet, the whole road wide for the 636 feet. And we got that all done before it rained on us. We spent about 4 days down there, just about as soon as it got light to as soon as it got dark. But we got it all done. Just got notice the resurfacing, the county's part, they're coming in to start resurfacing our 8 streets on June 11th through the 16th. And I'm still got 4 more roads to prep before they get here. And we're working on 2 of them right now, so that's about the extent of the road update. The next is a purchase order, because I ended up spending money to put Dunaway back together. Do you have the? First thing, we need to amend the appropriations for the street fund.
I'll move to amend the 2021 permanent appropriations for road and bridge fund capital outlay from $1,397,000 to $1,547,000. Is there a second?
Second?
Discussion? Roll call.
Roll call, Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Gebhardt?
Yes, motion carries.
And next is a PO for $150,000 that we actually spent about $147,000 on that road down there in 4 days, redoing the base. It's got about 8 inches of blacktop and 7 inches of 304 stone, so it should never fall apart again. But that's what I took the money from one of the streets I hadn't done. I've paid some of the bills already, but this is just to replace the money that I used.
All right, I'll move to approve the blanket purchase order in the amount of $150,000 for Jaycox Road repairs. Second?
Second?
Discussion? Roll call.
Roll call, Ms. Goodman? Ms. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Gebhardt?
Yes, motion carries.
And any other questions for me? But that's all I have.
I don't think so, Bob. Anyone else?
I know you're busy, Bob. Keep up the good work.
All right.
Are we still, have we hired any, I can't keep track of who we've hired and what we need to hire.
We hired one summer help
Okay,
and still looking for 2 more.
So we are still.
And we did hire a new buildings and grounds person.
Okay. So we still are looking for 2 more people. All right,
Yes.
we putting that out there? Linda's advertising. Okay. It needs to be full-time or summer help?
Summer help.
Summer help, all right. So any college kids out there, high school, well, college probably. All right. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Joe? Fire.
Good evening. A couple things on the agenda tonight. Following up on the conversation that we had at the May trustee meeting, and then pursuant to a meeting that Paul, myself, Donna had with Mike Burns, who was here at the last meeting. We sat down, I provided Mike our budget and our 5-year forecasted budget levy funds, where we would be at the end of the levy cycle. And we talked about the financials that were presented to you in May. And we sat down and looked at these, and I think it's probably safe to say the overall consensus was not optimistic. And I spent some more time. I had said to you that I would give you an email 2 weeks following our meeting. I was a little bit behind on that follow-up, but I was still trying to make sure that I examined our budget as closely as I could. And the end result, it was the email that I sent to you all on May 24th. I'm not comfortable with proceeding with the project because of the reasons that I cited to you of reducing our carryover into the next levy. Is a great concern of mine for our financial stability. And also due to the fact that those estimations of the construction costs were completed last summer, fall, as far as what the cost would be. I think everyone's aware of the massive increase of construction material costs. And I would hate for us to step into or begin a project and then suddenly realize that the construction costs are going to be 30 to 50% more than what we expected. So as I stated in the email to you, I think my recommendation to the board would be that we take a pause on this project. Let's watch what construction material costs. I'm talking with Jim Barna, looking for grant opportunities that would partial or fully fund this project. It gives us some time, it gives us some breathing room, but I just don't think right now is the time that we keep going full steam ahead. I'll keep it on my back burner. I'll be working with Jim, talking about looking for grant funding opportunities or some sort of a funding opportunity. And we'll keep working on it, and as there's updates to provide to you, I gladly will.
All right, Joe. So, I mean, regardless of, well, I don't know. Let me just ask the question. Regardless of, there were a couple plans, what does this do as far as the demo of anything over there? I mean, do we still want to just kind of let everything sit there for a while, see how things play out? Is there anything that we know we're just going to demo anyhow?
It's up to the board if you want to keep a status quo pattern on this. If you want me to move ahead with the demo work, we can begin that process also.
See, again, I don't know, I mean, depending on what the plan was, I don't want to demo something that we had intended to potentially utilize.
So if we were going to demo, basically, if we were going to demo, the part that we were going to keep was going to be the Sally Port holding area.
Right.
And then just to a little bit of the north of that, basically where the restrooms begin.
Okay.
And that southern hallway would be demolished. So obviously the Sally Port holding area is the newest of any of those structures over there. Right. It's in good condition. We're using it for some storage space now. I'm kind of glad you brought this up. I'd like to internally examine whether, as we are in this pause mode, if we could still internally with the fire department personnel look at and examine could we come up with a plan where we could get the gym equipment moved into that climate controlled space for the firefighters. And I'd like, if you would be okay with that, for me and some of our people to examine that and see if we could come up with a plan that I could come back to you with. I try to walk through the building a couple times a week to make sure we don't have any water main breaks, the heat's still working, we don't have any roof leaks. So I say right now, you don't have any urgency. And I will also say that we've been taking full advantage of it for training opportunities. We've been using the smoke machines, guys are doing search and rescue training, drills, et cetera. So we are taking advantage of the facility as it stands right now. So if we're not in any hurry, we would still like to take advantage of it because we really don't have a facility that we can train and simulate conditions for our personnel. So it's working out okay for us right now. So I would say, unless you feel that there's a need of urgency to demolish the building, we would like to continue to train in it and continue to let us develop a plan for hopefully moving the gym into that holding area where we can get the firefighters into a climate-controlled space and away from the exhaust fumes, and then look at what we can do internally with some of our talented and handy people.
I would be fine with that. I think that that's a good plan, and, you know, I know that you've got the Rube Goldberg tangle of water, electricity, all these utilities that run strangely through that building, and that would be a significant expense to decouple all of that material. As long as you can utilize that for training purposes at this time, I think that's great. And if you can internally move your exercise facility out of where the exhaust fumes and all that are, I don't have a problem with that at all. I think it's making the best of a situation that exists currently.
Okay?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a building that's not, you know, it's being used, but it's not being used. It's not like it's just sitting somewhere where there's going to be vandalism and stuff like that. So, I mean, I don't think there's any hurry to demo it. So if you're making some use in it.
We keep an eye on it, and we haven't had any problems. Like I said, I personally try to walk through it a couple times a week to make sure there's no problems.
Okay.
Just so something doesn't get away from us, and we suddenly find out, oh my gosh, the roof is flat back or something. So I do that just to make sure we don't have any problems, because since we're right there, and I'm there Monday through Friday, I just walk through a couple times a week to make sure we don't have any problems. So, okay?
Just look around, see if there's an extra piece of sheet metal laying around that Bob might be. Yeah, we'll see if that can be figured out. Right? Go ahead, Joe.
Okay, so next thing on the agenda is an update on the fire hydrants that we talked about 2 meetings ago. And I've got some updated sheets for you here.
Thank you.
So from the prior sheets, I went to Fire Marshal Cato, and I said, let's sit down and talk about where we can get the most bang for our buck for fire protection. And so we reprioritized that sheet from what the previous one. And so from in the yellow on the sheet in front of you would be areas that we would be inclined to add fire hydrants. And then anything in the blue is, as we discussed 2 meetings ago, we're on the lines that we wouldn't get the amount of water flow or what we would call fire flow that would be worthy for us to use during firefighting operations. So none of these have changed. All I asked Tony to do was prioritize from top to the bottom in the yellow of where we would go first, of where we feel is the most significant lack of fire hydrant protection, and that's on Red Bank Road in the area of Walnut Valley. We would look at 3 hydrants over there. That's a 6-inch main. We have some areas over there on residences. As you can see on that one is the distance to the closest hydrant. That's the furthest house to the closest hydrant is 27 feet. That's a lot of hose to lay down on the ground. If we can overcome a problem and put some hydrants in, that helps us out operationally immensely. So if you look at that overall, it's 3, 4, 5, 9 hydrants total in that yellow group. And so over the next 4 years in this levy cycle, I would say that we would pick out a couple, and we would approach Delco and say, again, I think I explained this to you the last time we talked about this. It's a matter of their workload. We go to them and say, hey, we've got an area where we want to put 3 hydrants in. Can we get on your schedule? And I'm sure we can find the money to fund these and just spread this out over the next 4 years to put these hydrants in.
Okay. So, Joe, it looks like, let's just use that example, the first one, Red Bank, east of Walnut Valley. So you're looking at 3 new hydrants. And Joe, maybe you could chime in here, or at least think about this a little bit. What are we seeing over on, especially the east side of Hoover, as far as additional new housing going in? I mean, they're going to obviously be on large lots. So the distance to the closest hydrant is 2,766 feet right now, and we want to put in 3 more hydrants. So I assume one of those hydrants is going to be a lot closer to that house.
Yes.
And then do we have other houses? Is that what we're saying? Other houses in that vicinity, or anticipate more housing?
Well, we do already have houses in that area.
Okay.
So Walnut Valley, the closest hydrant, 2 hydrants in that area is at Knoll, and then at the corner of Hughes and Red Bank. We have nothing in between that whole line. That whole area is lined with houses.
Okay.
So we either have to lay a hose from Knoll and come all the way down, or we have to bring it in the other way. So we've got nothing in between there. So the proposal would be, and I can pass this to you, is the yellow dots. This was in your last packet, and I didn't expect that you guys would probably bring those. If you just want to, I only brought my packet.
No, that's okay.
So basically what we're going to do is divide the distance between those. The 2 red dots are the existing hydrants, and the yellows would be where we would propose to plant the 3 new ones.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm away from the microphone.
Yeah, that was my question. So there's existing housing over there. I mean, I know, like, for instance, on Sunbury north of Maxtown, where you're looking at 1 new hydrant, I mean, there's, a bunch of houses already in there.
Right.
So
And
likelihood of
we
anything new going in is probably slim.
Yeah, we don't have anything going in, but, and I don't know if there's any potential growth. I mean, there's some areas behind some of those residences, and there are some empty lots that are decent size that if someone were to capture, kind of like a Britton Woods project, that would be troublesome for us if something like that were to go in over there. We've already had to do an extensive amount of work with Britton Woods to get them approved to be able to build there, and we've had some obstacles we've had to overcome.
Ponds and stuff.
Yeah. So we're just looking at where we can make the most significant impact. And then we, obviously, we studied Sunbury Road, and we do have hydrants on Sunbury Road, but they're a little bit stretched out for what our liking is, and we can get another one on Sunbury and north of Maxtown. It's going to help us a lot. And then some of these are just add-ons where, again, I have to explain that I wasn't involved in this project when Fire Marshal Skeel and Chief Honeycutt did it, so I don't know some of the history of why one wasn't put here, and maybe there wasn't a development there, and then suddenly we got one, and now we need to do something about it. And so we're trying to address those issues.
And not, I mean, just more out of curiosity than anything, Hawthorne Valley, down in the blue section, you had 3. I guess, why isn't that a higher priority? I'm sure people on Hawthorne are going to wonder that.
We could put 3 in there, okay? But the problem is those water lines are only 3-inch and 2-inch.
I see. Okay.
So what we did is we examined, and what I asked Fire Marshal Cato is a comprehensive overlook. I didn't care initially about the water main size. I said, tell me where we have hydrant shortages, and then go back and find out what the water main size is. So that way we could say, yeah, there's a problem there, but we can't do anything about it because of the water main size. Because what I didn't want us to do is solely look at the bigger water mains, I wanted you all to have a full picture of the whole township and problem areas and areas that we just can't do anything about.
And you had, I'm sure you answered this the last time, Joe. What is the preferred size of the line? I mean, you have 6-inch, 10-inch, 12-inch, 8-inch, down to 2-inch. I mean, what would you like to have in those ideally?
12-inch.
12-inch? Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, right.
Of course. That's a little unrealistic.
Yeah.
The minimum we'll allow on a new install is 6-inch.
Okay.
And that is also dependent, we don't, unless a very large piece of undeveloped property were to go in and just, I'm just gonna throw an arbitrary number out there. They wanted to throw 300 homes back in a development, and it was fed by 6-inch. We would probably look at some sort of an alternative plan where the developer would have to run another line from somewhere to get added water flow into that neighborhood. Because a 6-inch, you know, if it's running out, say, you know, the property north of Vinmar, you know, the undeveloped area up there, say something was gonna go in there, I think that's a 6-inch that runs down South Old 3C. It's an old 6-inch, okay? So we would probably have to go out and do a flow test to see what kind of water flow we're getting in that area, and more than likely require the developer to work with Delco to find an alternative way to bring in water into that subdivision so that we had enough fire flow, as we call it fire flow, water flow, into that neighborhood for fire protection. Okay. So currently, if something were to go in and there happens to be a 6-inch and it's a smaller development, 6-inch is okay. 8-inch and up is ideal for us because that provides great water flow for us.
So we're in good shape on those ones where you're going to be adding the hydrants. And is that something we would do or Delco would do? How do I turn that thing off?
We would pay Delco to install the hydrants.
Yeah, okay.
So, and that's, go ahead.
I don't remember the cost. You told us last time per hydrant, roughly.
Right now, it's about $3,000 per hydrant.
Okay. Thank you.
And when Fire Marshal Cato spoke to his contact over at Delco, they may be seeing a slight increase in hydrants, but that number hadn't been established yet. So I'd say if you want a ballpark figure between $3,000 and $3,500 per hydrant, I think would be safe to estimate.
So you need action from us?
Do not. If you're in agreement with the plan, I don't need a resolution or anything from you all.
Yeah.
I just wanted to update you after the questions were raised after
Right.
the fire that we had down off of Ruckmore.
No, I
that
think
was
this-
raised by a resident. I've been in contact with that gentleman twice since that fire, and I've been in contact with Delco, and he's asked a lot of good questions, and basically, Delco's not inclined to just arbitrarily go in and upsize a water main unless someone's gonna pay for it.
Yeah.
And that burden would fall upon the neighborhood for those people to collectively, they'd have to pay for it.
Yeah.
And I probably see that probably wouldn't happen.
One of the things I'm thinking is, we talk about these orange or yellow people now, and that these will be over the 4-year period of this levy. We probably, when we look at the next levy cycle, want to look into the blue area and budget some money for those areas if needed, and then, you know, determine whether or not we need to maintain our existing levy, increase, and this would be a very good reason, safety-wise. Additionally, I appreciate that you're working with Jim Barnett to try to find any possible grants on these kinds of things. Anything we can get to help defray the costs is of a benefit to all of us.
Sure. And so just to be clear, the areas in the blue are areas that we would not put fire hydrants in, okay, because of the undersized water mains. If you look at those streets, Hickory, Beach, Lynetta, Ruckmore, Spruce, Those are some of the oldest streets in the township, okay? So those water mains that run down those streets were originally 4-inch. They're probably iron ductile lines, so they've probably calcified over the years. So as long as some of those subdivisions, Beech, Hickory, Walnut, have been in, we'd be lucky to maybe call that a 2.5-inch water main because of the calcification that happens over the years. So that would be a case where if the neighborhood really wanted a fire hydrant in the neighborhood, again, we go back to the same instance with the gentleman I've been speaking to down off of Ruckmore. They would have to collaboratively as a neighborhood agree, and Delco would have to give them a price, and then they would have to bear the burden of upgrading the water main size.
The water main.
Okay? So does that help clarify?
It does, thank you.
Okay. And that's why we put the 2 different color codes in there. Maybe we should have made it, if we made it red, you probably wouldn't have been able to read it, but green, red, or something like that is, but we wanted a clear color demarcation between yellow meaning good. We can work with those areas and get hydrants put in, and then everything blue is the 4-inch and below water main size.
So basically, once we get those 6 locations addressed within a 4-year period, then we've done about as much as we can do with hydrants in the township at this point. Okay. All right. Sounds good?
Okay, new business, new station alerting system. And I think maybe it might be prudent to show the video first, and then we can talk about it. So we got a video queued up for you all to watch. And here's your VRBO advertisement.
Right.
Pat, was that you on there in the beginning?
What is the location of your emergency? It's down the driveway. What's going on there? There's a crash. You guys really need a crate. It looks really bad. Please stay on the line while I dispatch the units. I'd like to gather additional info from you while they're en route.
Keeping your first responder successful means getting the key factors right. Training, tools, and response. First responders well trained and well equipped. Trust the Phoenix G2 station alerting system. Give them that critical edge over time. With a single keystroke, the Phoenix G2 fully automated dispatching system can instantly alert multiple stations in less than a second. Voice and text information assure the right units respond at the right time.
Engine 840. Respond with other units. Traffic collision with extrication. Dowling Wind Highway 8. Map page 132. Respond on tab 6.
Phoenix G2 alerts everyone needed to call, no matter how far apart they may be. Quick, clean, clear, easy to read, lighted message displays further increase the situational awareness of the firefighters as they head toward the apparatus. The combination of message, sign information, and clear spoken speech give firefighters the information needed to respond quickly and effectively. Precise spoken information unique to the individual stations is delivered in milliseconds. For your first responders. By reducing the time it takes to alert the station and get the trucks rolling, the Phoenix G2 station alerting system cuts critical seconds, even minutes, off the turnout time outlined in 1710. Phoenix G2 station alerting is helping agencies around the country
Okay, so that's an overview of the system that I'm proposing for purchase this evening. And I've got a couple other items I'd like to present to you and then welcome your questions. As you saw in the video, this is a digital dispatching system, alerting system, I think is a better term to use. The current system that we operate under in Delaware County is we are all agencies, fire and EMS, are dispatched on a single, what we call radio talk group. And that's done by an actual person in Delcom, which is the 911 center. And only allows for one emergency to be dispatched at a time. When simultaneous emergencies occur across the county, the other calls are prioritized and placed in a queue and must wait until the radio channel is freed up, and then the next call is dispatched. Last year, Delcom processed over 110,000 calls, which is an average of 300 calls per day. Simultaneous calls occur daily, but especially during severe weather events and also during significant large incidents. By purchasing and installing the G2, which was that black box you saw in the video, the Atx Station Controller, which would be digitally tied directly to the 911 center, Delcom, our station and apparatus would receive a notification in less than 1 second of once the critical data is input into the CAD system, thereby reducing the time it takes to be notified of the emergency. And this also provides a redundancy compared to the old system by using multiple pathway options, which include fiber, cloud, and radio. The black box that you saw, which is called the Atx Station Controller, is the brain of the system. And basically it's designed to be what we call a Lego-like construction. So we can add on additional components down the road as we see the need or we want to make improvements to the system. Included in the proposal are some omnidirectional alerting speakers, which are optimized for the large open areas like our apparatus bay. Right now, we basically have loudspeakers in the bay. If I understand correctly, these are noise attenuating, so they understand the ambient volume. So these speakers recognize the noise volume in the apparatus bay, and they increase the volume as needed. They also have flashing strobes on them to grab the employee's attention. We also, as you saw on the video, some of the scrolling message boards. We would install some of those, and then you also saw as the firefighters were climbing onto the apparatus, there were some of those same type of boards, and there was a timer that was running. That's a notice to the firefighters of how much time has elapsed since they were alerted to the emergency for them to be getting out the door. We have a standard that we aim for to get out the door under a fire emergency and an EMS emergency, and that falls under that standard of NFPA 1710 that they referenced in the video. So, we continue to research other enhancements and the positive effects on the health and well-being for the employees, and we would look at budgeting for further additions down the road. This product would help us significantly to continue to meet and exceed our response times as outlined in the NFPA 1710 standard. And as a closing note, this company, US Digital Design, has been in business for over 20 years and has an almost 100% customer retention rate. And I want to say, I thought on the one web meeting that he said they had a 100%. Once they, did he say that? Yes? Maybe. Yes. So I have had a chance to sit in on a couple web meetings regarding this system, and I'll also be forthcoming with you that this is a non-budgeted item. We had it in the budget for last year and we cut it just because we didn't think we could afford it. But we got a $35,000 BWC refund that we had budgeted for this year. So I asked Donna to put that in our capital equipment fund. So we have funds available to purchase this equipment. And basically, as I outlined in the opening statement there, of sometimes the delay in being notified of the emergency, we can't respond until we get notified. And this system will allow for an almost instantaneous notification to us. As they continue to gather information, the call is being dispatched in our firehouse, and the firefighters are preparing, getting on the trucks and responding to the emergency. So watching as many videos as I could recently of various fire chiefs talking about what this system has done for their agencies, and a lot of them cited they have seen a reduction in the response time of once the firefighters are notified till the apparatus rolls out the door. They've seen that response time reduced by 50% and sometimes greater. And that's a significant savings in time, because obviously we can only drive so fast to get to an emergency, but the one thing we can always work on is lessening the time of processing the call, dispatching the call, and then our personnel getting out the door. And this can help us significantly achieve that goal. And I'm welcome for questions.
Questions? Are other departments moving over to this system on our county at least? Do you know?
I know we are, and I know, I think the city of Delaware, being that this is new, I think that they're gonna look at moving to this next year. So we may be one of the first in the county. And I think Sunbury, BSD&G is, I think, exploring it also.
I don't quite understand. Delcom sends the information out. How does that interact with this system versus the old one? And there's a disconnect there for me, and I don't even know how to ask the question.
So I brought Corey tonight because he's my technical expert, and he can probably answer some of the much more detailed questions better than I'm capable of doing.
You want to ask your question one more time so I make sure I
Well,
answer it appropriately?
I don't understand if this is a new system and we would be the first people on it. Delcom is working with a currently existing system. For my mind, there's a disconnect in how their system that sends out one thing at a time is going to get this to us faster.
Okay, so earlier this year, Delcom purchased their control system that would link up to ours to allow basically the computers to do the work.
Okay, so they're on a new system is the point that I, missed.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
They've bought into this product that now allows the fire departments to connect to it.
That's what I missed. Thank you.
And you probably won't care about this, but it will be through a static IP address that communicates between the two boxes probably.
Yeah.
Allows them to have that communication.
Yes, and that's what will give us the alert, the notifications in less than a second.
Right.
And also the redundancy, as Chief noted. We're tied in already to the county's fiber, so that will be our primary pathways, and then there'll be redundancies built in case something happens with
Right.
fiber network.
Yeah.
Sure, I'll go ahead and ask the question. So if the county has already put in a box, and that's as far as I go technically, a box, and the assumption is the counties or the townships or the departments will eventually put in boxes, why isn't the county just kind of going to this system and paying for it?
So this is a piggyback system, basically, for lack of a better word, like an integration module. The county is currently installing a new CAD system, computer-aided dispatch system. The old system would not have done this because it's old. So during that process, and Corey may able to speak to this, they looked at the opportunity to improve the system. The CAD's going to be a huge improvement to begin with, okay? But obviously, with this happening, some departments financially may not be in a position or just may not be interested. So Patrick Brandt decided that they would buy their portion of it, And then as departments become interested or find the funds to do it, then they would be able to add themselves to the system. I can't necessarily speak of why they wouldn't pay for it. I think that may be out of my realm of.
Sure. No, that was, but I mean, it does seem like if it's an enhanced system and a more effective system, that it would be nice if as many departments could get on it as possible, especially if the county has recognized there's apparent value and benefit in doing that. So, and I don't know, Joe, if this has been discussed at all with the pre-hospital care board or not, but it might be something to talk about with them.
It has not. This is something that has not come up, but I could broach the subject but we were trying to be proactive for our residents.
Sure.
And when we had the opportunity, and like I said, we cut this out of the budget because we didn't think we were going to be able to afford it this year. And the refund, thankfully, is going to allow it if you so approve this evening for us to move forward. We're just always looking for, as the technology changes, the opportunity, there's only so many things we can do to improve our response times, and that's that notification period, and then how quickly we get out the door to respond to the emergency. Everything else is kind of out of our control per se.
Is the county EMS looking at the system?
I believe they're looking at it.
Okay.
I don't know where they're at in that,
Atx, yeah.
as far as monetarily or anything like that.
Corey, I asked the chief this question earlier this week, but he didn't have an answer, so I'm hoping you do. So you have this US Digital Designs. Are there other vendors out there? Did you look at other products, or is this the only one you've looked at?
So the Delaware, Delcom, the 911 dispatcher, they decided to go with this company. There are other companies out there, but for the usability and the different components that we can add and take away from it, the only comparable vendors were much more expensive than the US digital design, sorry.
They've been integrating with two separate systems instead of going system to system, probably, maybe.
I believe it's just they're kind of in the same market, but there's a lot of other automations that you could do with their system compared to us. What we're looking at, there's components inside the fire station that would help benefit us in our turnout times, not necessarily automating more stuff in the dispatch center.
So Joe, is this, I'll assume this does not affect any mutual aid communications, or if there's, something at the Harlem, Genoa Township line, and, is Harlem going to be notified? Is Genoa going to be notified by Delcom? Or, I'm not even sure if that's how that works. So again, I'm, really asking some far-out questions here, Corey. Sorry about that. But,
no, you're fine. So currently, right now, if anything were to come in, regardless of where it's at, whether it's in our township or outside of our township, when we're being requested mutual aid, we would all still be notified at the exact same time on that one talk group. So if there's another run to be dispatched and the run that we need to be dispatched on is placed in the queue, we have to wait till the air opens up for that dispatch to go out. We would all get notified at the same time. The system, let's say if we had the US Digital Designs controller in our station, as soon as there's enough information in the computer of what the emergency is and where it's at, we're notified in a second, regardless of that single talk group that's still going to be in existence for the rest of the county. We are going to be notified in less than a second. So, go ahead.
No, that's why it just seems like it makes so much sense to, why wouldn't the county, if it's a far more efficient system and you're not waiting in the queue, I don't think it's, waiting in the queue like you're in, the line at, Wendy's or something where you're sitting there for 5-10 minutes. It's probably a lot quicker than that, but it seems like if it's more instantaneous and more efficient, that it would really be something that we would want to be looking at everywhere. Now, granted, we're worried about, you know, a township here, but, so I don't know. So it is a redundant system. This current system we will continue to have, and then this will be priority, or will be the one that is the primary. I
Correct.
guess.
If we had a catastrophic failure of the system, it would still fall back to the current system of the radio that we have inside the station, the single talk group.
Okay.
I'm actually looking on page 16 here, and not that you all have to turn to it, I'll go on. But it talks about mobile apps, watches, phones, et cetera. I know you talked about in the station, there'd be the big board with the flashing numbers, et cetera. Any feeling for how helpful it would be for our firefighters and station personnel to have these mobile applications on watches, phones, and are they compatible with Androids and Apples and?
Yes, absolutely. So they do work, Apple and Android, your phone, your watches. We would, I believe it's 24 licenses is what we would have.
Okay.
That would not necessarily cover all of our firefighters, but we would be able to provide a great majority of the firefighters with that. So if they're outside running around the station, they could rely on their personal wearable device to notify them of the run and not necessarily have to carry the $3,000-$4,000 walkie with them as they're running on the outside of the station. It is their phone at that point would be a primary method of notification for the emergency.
Do you have any idea what additional licenses would cost beyond the 24?
I do remember looking it up, and it was pretty substantial. It would not, in my personal opinion, be worth outfitting every firefighter with. I'm sorry, I don't remember that.
No,
figure,
that's.
but it was pretty substantial.
And if I can, Corey and I discussed also, we would put the application, so we have iPads on all the apparatus. So we would put the application on all the iPads in the various apparatus. And then what we had talked about is probably all the officers would have the application. And then we would probably look from how many we had left over. We would start on a seniority basis. And however many we had left over, we go from the most senior guy, and however many we could hand them out. And then that's what we would do with the amount of licenses that they were going to give us.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What's your time? I mean, this isn't, I don't want to say time sensitive, but I mean, is it something that we need to take action on tonight, or is this more for information? I mean, I'm not saying I'm opposed to it. I just, I guess it sounds like it's going to be a more efficient, and I'm thinking out loud here, a more efficient communication system from Delcom to us that will allow us to get the information quicker and leave the station quicker.
Correct.
Okay. But it's not a system that everyone's going to have right at this point. It's just going to be us. And it's going to be paid for out of the Bureau of Workers' Comp Fund.
A refund.
The refund, which you had budgeted. So what isn't going to get funded with that? Is there?
Well, basically, we had budgeted $35,000 to pay for our portion of the BWC premium. Thank you.
Premium, yeah.
And then we got the refund.
Okay.
And so we're funded. So the refund, we had no premium due this year. So Donna informed me of that, and I said, let's take that money and put it in the capital machinery and equipment, because this was the first thing that came to my mind. I think I get what you're saying, and I think this is an option for local jurisdictions to do. Some jurisdictions may not want to do it. As far as maybe a volunteer organization. It's still, they're at home, they rely on a pager that they carry. Could they do this? Do they have the finances to do it? I think the answer that may come back would be their responsibility is what they do is the dispatching over the radio.
Yeah,
They've taken this step to.
I wouldn't compare us to a volunteer station, Joe, and I
I'm
mean,
just saying it as far as a countywide approach.
right. But I would think that the larger stations, the larger townships, the Liberties, the Orange, the Genoas, the Harlems, you know, some of those jurisdictions, it seems like everyone would want to be going to this and probably financially could afford to do it. So that's why I asked if this had been talked about in the pre-hospital care board.
Yeah, it had
meetings.
not.
Okay.
Although, did this come through the subcommittee technology? Or is
It
this-
does not come through the technology committee, through the pre-hospital care.
But it also seems strange that the county would put in their box when no one else had a box. So how did that come about? What's their thinking there?
So, we wouldn't be able to put our box in if they did not.
Right.
Because our box has to tie to them. And they have benefits for it too, because they can automate their dispatching and free up some of their dispatchers.
Okay.
So they have significant benefit within the 911 center.
Okay, so
And
that's helpful, yeah.
I do know the 911 levied funds do not allow for any of these components to be paid for each individual department, just for the 911 center.
Mhm. The county got, what, $40 million in,
Yeah, they recently received $40 million in, I'm not sure the name of the fund. Do you remember the name of that fund, Joe? It was,
Something along the line of the American Rescue Plan
yeah,
Act or something like that.
yeah, I'm sure they have that spent. All right, any other questions? I'll go ahead and move to approve the purchase order of U.S. Digital Designs in the amount of $35,000 for a G2 fire station alerting system. Is there a second? Second. Any further discussion, questions?
Roll call, Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn? Yes. Mr. Gebhardt?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry.
Right above that.
I'm sorry?
Right above that, there was.
Yeah,
a
See, I
it's
don't have that
supplemental.
on mine. I'm sorry.
Joe?
No, it's okay. I just didn't get it.
That was a new business. Okay, go ahead. So we got the
I don't have
supplemental.
that, so I can't read it to you. Can I just,
It's the $5,000. Move to approve the following supplemental appropriation from account number 2192-220-318-000, amount of minus $5,000, to the account 2192-760-740-0000 in the amount of $5,000. So somehow we're moving around $5,000.
that's, would you like me to explain that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so, so when we got that refund, and this is a positive, we originally thought that we were gonna have to, so Corey is going to learn how to do all the installation. So we don't have to pay for someone to come install the equipment.
Okay.
So we thought we were gonna have to send Corey to training in Phoenix. Well, as he talked with Patrick Brandt, the Delcom director, come to find out in the package that he bought, there was training provided.
Okay.
So I had originally taken that $35,000 and put $30,000 in the capital, $5,000 in my training budget.
I see.
To pay for Corey's training. So when we found out that Corey's training was already gonna be paid for by Delcom, then we realized we could do all this, and then I talked with Donna yesterday and asked for that appropriation to be moved, so we had it all in one fund,
All right, good.
okay?
So the county is helping us out after all.
They've helped us out tremendously.
Very good. Good. We appreciate that. All right, any other questions? Roll call.
You need a
Up.
second?
Second. I thought we had a second.
Yeah.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, okay.
Roll call, Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn? Yes. Mr. Gebhardt?
Very good. And now we need the purchase order.
Nope.
We did that. All right, I'll check that one off too.
Chief Ponzi's done.
Only with a few other helping me hey, you need to do this, okay, I'll make sure that happens.
Corey, we appreciate you picking this up and running with it as well, and, you know, making sure it's working, so, yeah. All right, thanks. All right.
I have one other thing,
Yeah, no, go ahead.
just a
Oh, I have
good of the order.
actually a question.
Last Friday, we conducted our last drive-through COVID vaccination.
I was going to ask about that, yeah.
Station. The health department had seen a great decrease in the amount of people scheduling appointments through the health department now, public health department. And so they thought that they didn't need to any further utilize our station as a drive-through site because of the widespread availability. They're actually slimming down the amount of clinics that they're providing down to 2 a week, where when we originally started, I think they were running 6 days a week. So I happened to be looking at numbers yet, well, let me take one step back. So I reported to you, I think at the last meeting, that we're probably helped over 3,000 people get their vaccinations. I'm waiting on a final number, which I'll probably just email to you just for your knowledge. Sure. But I would guesstimate that we probably assisted in providing roughly 3,500 vaccinations during the time that we were open providing the clinics.
Very good.
So
When I saw where Delaware County, I think, has the highest vaccination rate.
that's what I was
and the
gonna,
lowest, yeah.
That's what I was just going to point out, is I was really surprised. I got on the state's website last night and was poking around at numbers. And as of last night, we were at 50.9%. And I didn't see anybody that was, there was some 40s and 45s. So
Good.
It's nice to know that we helped out with that cause.
Absolutely. All right, very good. Thanks, Joe. And extend our appreciation to the staff that was involved in that department. All right, I don't see any other business on here. Anything else, Paul?
Just want to mention one thing. The township has had 2 deaths in the past week that have been directly involved with Genoa Township. We had a fiscal officer in the 90s. Her name was Jean Evans, passed away this past week. Family is still in the area and I believe still in the township. And secondly, the township lost a great supporter of the fire department. Mrs. May McCorkle passed away. So longtime supporter of the fire department. So remember all their families in your prayers.
Yeah, well, thanks for letting us know that. Well, why don't we send just a note or something to the family?
Sure.
Of both of those, but
Yep.
since they were associated with the township, appreciate that. All right, announcements. Our next trustee meeting will be July 1, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. here at the administration office. And we do have an executive session scheduled. I will now move to adjourn into executive session at 8:21 p.m. to consider the employment of a public employee. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Roll call, Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Gebhardt?
Yes, motion carries. We stand adjourned in executive session at 8:21 p.m. we're back into regular session. The time is 8:37 PM. Being that there is no further business, I will move to adjourn at 8:38 PM. Is there a second?
Do we have to come out of exec first? A second for coming out?
All right, probably. Is there a second to come out of executive session?
Second.
Seconded, discussion, roll call.
Roll call, Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Gebhardt?
Yes, motion carries. All right, now we're out of exec session. We're into the back into the regular session at 8:38 PM. I will make a motion to adjourn at 8:38 PM. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, Ms.
Discussion?
Goodman?
Yes.
Ms. Vaughn? Yes. Mr. Gebhardt?
Yes, motion carries. We stand adjourned.